Good morning, everyone. This is Muchismo Eugene. I'm coming to you again with another exit strategy. And here I deal with all things dealing with an exit strategy, showing you how I exited a narcissistic abusive relationship. And I share with you strategies on how to exit effectively and quietly. At the same time, have some awareness before or as you exit. Okay, that being said, I left off yesterday with the part where the brother has already been informed of the fact that I now know that she very well is or could be a narcissist. We continue to come back home. We walk into the house. It is quiet in the house. I am in no contact mode. My children are in no contact mode. Everything we say in the house is a whisper, to the point where we don't want, no uncertain terms, the narcissist to even hear our voice. And this is a strategy that is very effective because they need to know what you're thinking, what you're saying, how you're feeling, what your intentions are, what your motives, where you're going, when you're going, how long you're going to be there. This allows them to plan their disgusting trickery of sorts with other people. While you're doing these noble things, they're doing these disgusting things. And so we continue to live within this home for, I think, roughly 3 weeks. And in that matter of time is what it took for her to leave. There is some specifics that I'm going to point out to you that you may have observed or encountered in your own relationship if you've done a no contact. And if you haven't done a no contact, this is what you can expect, give or take. It may come sooner than later, but they all do the same thing. You may witness some of the stuff I'm about to point out. I am a Christian, and I met this individual at a church. It wasn't her church, it was a visiting church, to which I think she had been visiting here and there, bouncing around. They church hop like you wouldn't believe. And that was ironic because after I met her, I sort of thought we had the same mindset as far as church goes, because, well, of course, I was the vocal piece. So whatever you say, they comply with it, they agree to it, they go along with it. So it has you thinking that this person and you think alike. Point being, I mentioned some stuff about church and church membership, to which I don't walk it back. I'm a Christian. Haven't lived in a long time how I should live, but there's a deep conviction about certain things in which I believe we all do repetitively and habitually, and to the point where we're brash about it. We're so brash to the point where not only will we not feel conviction when someone from the fold or our Christian brother or sister tells us, we get livid, we get offended, we get sensitive, we get standoffish. And that bigger point is, I begin to see the church as just a place where people go and hang out and just have fun and laugh and clown around, look for women, look for men, and they leave, and once they go through the doors back out into the world, sort of like they put on costumes. And that always bothered me. And as of late, it's really been, it's been apparent in my life, because certain things I just I don't go with the flow. So that was the conversation I was having with her off and on. And I was saying, I need for pastors to preach the Bible, Jesus Christ crucified, everything and all things dealing with that. No deviations. Not about me and my fishing trip, all of this other stuff that we sometimes share on the pulpit. I just need somebody to be for real with this book. If you're going to teach me, I can half step on my own. So I guess that's my big point. So she kind of agreed to this kind of stuff, like, yeah, and she would chime in and give me observations of her own, and I was like, this may be a solid woman. This may be the wife that not so much is astute in the Bible, but in her humility, in her quietness of nature, maybe we always fantasize. We always paint a big picture that looks beautiful to us. And this is kind of what I did. And she was doing her magic as well and having me believe that she was somehow had a gift in the way that she observes the church. And it sort of went along with how I saw the church too. And we began to say, hey, let's just go to churches randomly. Not going in there to observe people doing all the wrong things, but go in there specifically to observe if God is being preached from the Bible with minimal deviations, minimal attention brought to the pastor, minimal attention brought to the administration, the music, because a lot of churches, they put so much emphasis into the music. In this specific church that I met her in, they play music probably, I wouldn't say an hour. Sometimes it could linger for an hour. And the sermon may last 30 minutes or an hour, but you figure, oh, music an hour, sermon an hour. Oh, what's the big deal? If I had my way, now that I'm matured in many ways as a man and as a believer, I believe God's not impressed with the music. I just believe he wants your worship, but it doesn't have to be embedded in the music, because the music is really, when you think about it, is for self-gratification. It may be worship to God, but we can't deny we go away saying, man, that's a beautiful song. So the beauty we see in it is for our own self-satisfaction. If we're truly worshiping God, it doesn't matter if we're playing music. It doesn't matter if we're holding our hands up in holy submission to God, or we're silently worshiping him. And that is where I believe I stand on that. This is not about me placing judgment on other people, but looking at the book, I believe God wants your, he wants your worship. He wants your obedience, to him. And that obedience is worship too. So the thing is, we would go to different churches, and again, we would see some of the same things, to which I would broach the subject and she would play along. And, for a long time looking back, I think that was a distraction of sorts as to what they do. They find things that you're passionate about. They find things that you are very attentive to, things that you have a very, very deep concern about. And because they don't have a conversation, they can't strike up a conversation and talk for minutes and hours on end. They just throw bits and pieces. And if you pay attention, they don't really even finish a conversation. They don't even finish one. Especially if they're anticipating you're gonna start a conversation of your own. That's what they're hoping for. Like, whew, I wasn't interested in that at all anyway, so let's just listen to this idiot. So that being the case, church was something I thought we had a very, very common ground on. But when I would ask her to pray over grace over the food, my children are delighted because they grew up doing it. Formalized or not, they just seem like they really, and their prayers are very good and sound. They pray for other people. They pray for people who are less fortunate, don't have anything to eat. They just pray general about the world at large. And so when it came time for me to ask her to pray over, say grace over the food, I don't want to. You do it. I don't know how. It was a million excuses, and it got to a point where I just emphasized on it and said, well, it doesn't matter. Just say, so God, thank you for the food. Amen. In Jesus' name. She would be hard-pressed to even say that. And when she did, I think she did it once. I don't believe if she did it twice, it would be really, really a miracle if she did. I believe she did it once in the 9 months she was in my house. Now, these are things I didn't pay attention to when I first met her. A person you meet in the church, they may not even be in that place with God. But a person that has a real strong disdain or distaste without saying it against prayer to the point where they kick and scream against it. No, I don't want to. Which was a lot of her responses. I don't want to. You do it. That's concerning in and of itself. And that's where I fault myself or I take responsibility. That goes along with the unequally yoked, because you meet a woman in the church or a man in the church doesn't mean that they're the person that you're supposed to be yoked up with. And for that matter, if you meet them at Walmart, it's just, you have to be able to test these spirits. And obviously I was led into her affections by way of her autistic son. Now, we met at the church, as I just pointed out. But how we met, I was running a little late for church. I've told this story, I think, briefly, but to be in depth about it for about 2 minutes. I was driving to the church. I was a little late. I drove into the parking lot, which was around the back of the church, the building. So as I was coming around the corner, her son was walking 10, 20 steps ahead of her. She later said he never listens. He jumps out of the car like a little puppy, and he runs ahead of me because he wants to be first. And having autism, this is some of the stuff you'll see them do. They want to be super independent to a fault, but he walked ahead of her and he saw my car coming around. So I think he thought I was going to hit him, or he at least felt that way. So there was a light post, real tall light post. So he dotted back behind the light post as if to say, wow, let me stand behind this thing as protection. And I finally found a park, get out of the car. I began to walk into the church, me and my twin. I could see a woman fidgeting with something at her car door at the driver's side. And I just kind of nonchalantly said over in her direction. I wasn't going to hit him. I saw him. He seemed like he was afraid. And he, being the outspoken person, he said, "You almost hit me." And I knew right away that he had some disabilities, just, in appearance. And so I chuckled it off and I headed into the church. Later on, after church exited, my kids asked me could they go and play on the playground for a couple of minutes. They're older now, but I said, oh, well, we don't have any time constraints. We don't have anywhere to go. I said, why not? Go ahead. I sat on the bench, the picnic bench, with my arms on my knees as I am now, and just kind of veering out into directly in front of me, I guess just pondering on the sermon and what had just happened, because often after service, this is what people do. Just having a quick, quiet moment, and all of a sudden, I see a piece of paper pass under me like this. My head is down a little bit, and it's handed to me. I look up, it's her. She hands me a tract from what was her church. I replied nonchalantly, I don't know if I'll be coming to your church, but thank you. And so that serves for anybody who's trying to give me any kind of church tracts. I'm in that place where, it doesn't work on me. If I hear good things about a church, I'll go. If I don't hear good things about a church, I'll happen upon the church as I believe the Spirit will lead me. I won't say I'm against formalized religion, but there is so many rackets in the church. Now, this was before I even discovered narcissistic personality disorder. And now what I know about this disorder, it makes perfect sense. And that's the empath in us. Before we even get this knowledge on this disorder, we know that something just doesn't sit right. We're energy readers. We can read energies just like the narcissist can, for the good of humanity, of course, unlike these monsters are. So, got the track, eventually got in my car, went home. think it was maybe a couple weeks, maybe not even that much. And I saw the track on the table, and I asked the kids, "You want to go over to this church? It's not far from the house. It's probably like 2 minutes driving, not even." And so we decided to go. I go, I walk in, I notice and I observe where she's sitting. I walk right over to her and sit beside her. And what I believe for me was a real beautiful moment, because I actually was happy to have joined her in her service at her church. And to me, as a believer, if somebody comes and I ask them to come as a visitor and they just show up randomly, that kind of warms my heart. So in my mind, I thought that might have warmed her heart, because people love it when their witnessing draws people to the church. That's sort of like what we're here for. And so, because that's the start for a person otherwise that don't know Christ to know him. So I felt good about that. Sat beside her and her son. After service, she immediately said, "Thanks for coming. My mom makes dinner every Sunday after church. So if you want to stop by, you can. You don't have to call. You can just stop by." She gave me the address, and ironically, her address is the same number as my house number. Not her address, but her house number is the same exact numbers. The same exact numbers. Every one of her numbers on her house is the same as mine, which, coincidentally, that really doesn't mean anything. Pardon me. Just taking a moment to let you guys check out my new cup. My daughter suggested I get this when I was against it, but I didn't see anything else that sort of made any kind of comical sense. It says, I don't know if you can read it. What does it say? I don't have the light on in here today, but I don't think the lighting is terrible. Excuse the messy kitchen rack back there, but this is what it is, real life. People say I'm full of myself. How else could I get so good looking? I don't really get that. People say I'm full of myself. How else could I get so good looking? I don't believe in that per se, how that goes, but it's supposed to be funny. It's a nice big cup too. And the monsters don't like you to say things about yourself like that. If you see your own value and your own worth, they don't like that. So, and not to rub that in. Back to what I said. I went to a church. After the church service was over, I kind of greeted a few of the people. I think she took me up to greet her pastor. He's a very likable guy right off the bat. Looking back at that church, there's a lot of hurt, sick, spiritually sick people in that church. And that's not anything directed towards them as personal attack. But that is exactly what is happening over there. And that I don't walk back. When you have these and you have the Spirit of God living in you, we need to say it for what it is. In society, they have a thing they call in the neighborhoods. They say, if you see something, say something. See something, say something. Now, everybody in society is probably on board with that. If I see a suspicious predator in the park, say something. What if you see something's not right in your church? I don't want to judge nobody. I ain't my place to do that. I think any of you survivors here should know full well that this is a time in our world that we need to start making a judgment call. However you translate that, that's your own business. I know what it means, and my daddy knows what it means. You need to make a judgment call. I haven't been in a relationship in probably about 2.5 years, 3 years. anything to be, to be spoken of. I have, however, gotten involved with a few borderline personality disorder female, to which wasn't so much intimacy. It hadn't garnered intimacy level. A couple I detected it right off the bat. Whether I'm wrong or right, I would rather be wrong about being right. And I have a saying. It goes like this: everybody's a narcissist until you're not, until you can disprove my doubts. I'll work my way from the inside out. When there's a crime or murder, where do they start? With the family members. And that's no analogy, but you start from the inside and you work your way out if you need clarity. I even told the girl I was involved with last, on a friendship level with benefits or whatever. And that's something I'm struggling with. I want you guys to pray and ask God to cover me in His blood over this thing, because the flesh is a beautiful thing if you do it God's way. If you don't, you gotta fault yourself for that. Devil didn't make you do it, whatever. Point taken, I'm sure. So I met a couple of borderline personality disorders. Specifically, I pretty much denounced that they were narcissists. It was very clear, and if you research this stuff, you'll be able to see distinctively that they may have strong narcissistic traits, but that doesn't in and of itself make somebody a narcissist. So to my point with that, I met a few, and I was able to abort mission. That's when you know you're getting strong. And it's almost, when I think about it, you can detach with no emotional ties, pretty much like the narcissist. You become exactly, in many ways, like the narcissist in your level of boundaries, in a good way. They may not form bonds with people. They don't love, they don't grow with you like you do them. But on the flip side of that, being a healthy person, your love levels are still up here, or actually they're up here now. You're able to love somebody at a distance now. You can love them being a human being, but if you see they have a struggle, you're not even looking down on them. What you're doing is you're establishing a boundary that you're not willing to compromise for the sake that they have a struggle. May they find their way. May they find their way. Because you got a lot of stuff you got to deal with on your own. You don't need to even be concerned about how bad they are. Somebody needs to help them. Somebody needs to be considerate of them. Somebody needs to show them love. And for the sake of doing that, we become gullible. We make ourselves gullible. We actually convince ourselves of being gullible. When we got all the information, red flags, whatever you want to say, we got all the information, the data, intel right in front of us. So this is like an emphasis on some stuff as I'm trying to give you an exit strategy. These are things, this is a thought process that I think we all must have before we actually get out of a situation that you don't wholeheartedly understand. When you're getting the knowledge, you have to speed up your healing even before you get out of that house or out of that situation or out of that job. You have to speed it up, because if you don't start getting some kind of healing or closure or some understanding, wrap your brain around this, you're going to get out of this into something else with somebody else, which is this last borderline personality disorder girl. Beautiful personality. They have everything that you could want in a person. But she would drink alcohol, smoke marijuana. She was recently in cocaine. All the things that a lot, just what I just said, people like, why would you even entertain anything with this person? Well, on the side of humanity, I mean, I have a heart for people. The attraction was there. But as I said before, there's something with being healed and healing as a progressive thing. You can let that person have a part of you. Let them experience a part of you as a whole human being that's continually growing and wants to improve your life. That impacts people. that could touch somebody. And this specific person I'm speaking of, I could pick the phone. Not even, I don't have to pick the phone up. They normally text you shortly after you've already formed that boundary, and they kind of know in their mind this is not going anywhere. So they may not text you for a day or two or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, what's cooking? Good looking, or some kind of joke. Instead of saying hey, or they'll say, hey, how are you doing? Like they're very genuinely concerned. But what that is actually saying, what mood are you in? I'm trying to temperature check you. And so to the last text, I think they wrote me, if I'm not mistaken, it was, how are you? No, what are you doing? What are you doing? And so to that I said, research. One word, research. And I really wasn't involved with research per se then. And by the way, they know my YouTube channel. And so very few people know my YouTube channel, because I took the liberty of trying to, just inform her about what she had went through by way of a guy. And she, they all come in, and this is the trickery. They'll come in, and if they're female, in my particular situation, I date women. This is heterosexual. You can flip it around. It could be a man. They come in and they automatically say, oh, he did me this way, that way, dirty, blah, 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 almost killed me, And you take that story 50-50, take it 50-50, you know that. But they're convincing. They're very convincing. And you're looking for little snags in their story.